Hey guys, welcome back into the channel. And I wanted to quickly talk about something that I think a lot of people in the media are discussing right now. And that's when it comes to the Chicago Cubs, who is the MVP of this team? Who is the most valuable player? And obviously, when talking about this, it comes down to one of two people. It comes down to either Kris Bryant or Anthony Rizzo. Now, don't get me wrong. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to pick who I believe is the MVP of this team and who has been the MVP this season. But like I said, don't get me wrong. I love both of these guys. I think they're both terrific players, and without either one of them, this team would not be what they are. So, but getting right into it, when you look at all the stats, and that's how I think you have to look at it. I mean, I watch every game, so I take that into consideration as well. You know, what my eyes tell me. But also, you got to take into consideration the stats you see on paper and the stats that are in front of you. And so we're going to go through it. Batting average. At this point, it's been 129 games. You got 33 left to play. When it comes to batting average, Kris Bryant is batting .305. Anthony Rizzo is batting .296. So in that respect, Kris Bryant has the advantage. When it comes to on-base percentage, you got Kris Bryant at .396. You got Anthony Rizzo at .393. So a slight advantage for Kris Bryant, but to be completely honest, I mean, that's, you know, if Bryant comes up in his first at-bat today and makes an out and Rizzo gets on base, well, then it's the same. So, but I guess if you had to pick, Bryant has a slight advantage. When it comes to slugging percentage, Kris Bryant .575, Rizzo .560. Again, Bryant with a slight advantage. When it comes to home runs, you see a bit of a disparity here with Bryant with 35, Rizzo with 25. I think Bryant is a more powerful hitter, but until recently they were about equal in that area too. Kris Bryant's really went on a hot streak here lately and has really grown the gap between him and Rizzo in home run totals. When it comes to RBIs, we got an absolute lock at 89 apiece. So in that respect, Rizzo doesn't lose. But in a way, you have to consider the fact that Bryant has been batting second for a few months now, while Rizzo's been batting third. So Bryant has had a lot fewer opportunities when it comes to having guys in front of him on base than Rizzo has. Because like I said before, the OBP for Bryant's .396. So every time Rizzo comes up, you know, Bryant's on base just about. Well, when Bryant comes up, Rizzo's not on base because he bats after him. So Bryant being tied with Rizzo in that respect is honestly a win for Bryant, in my opinion. When it comes to WAR, there's no one better in professional baseball than Kris Bryant at 6.3 wins above replacement. Rizzo at 4.7, which is still a very good WAR, just not quite in Bryant's territory. So Bryant wins every single one of these stats, other than RBI, which they're tied. Some other reasons why each guy could be the MVP of the team is you got Kris Bryant. Like I said, he's the NL leader in WAR. That's a stat you can't take away from him. That's immensely important. And, you know, he's always going to be high in that stat, I would think. He was last year as well, even in his rookie season. Another reason, like I said, he has a massive lead in home runs. He leads the entire league in runs scored at 107. That's compared to Rizzo's 76 runs scored. And that's a hell of a... I mean, you could say, well, yeah, Bryant, if you're a Rizzo supporter, you could say, well, yeah, Bryant has scored more runs because Rizzo comes up after him and knocks him in. That's true, he does most of the time. But Bryant has the same amount of RBIs as Rizzo. And Bryant doesn't have Rizzo on base every... You know, so what I'm saying is that Bryant scores a shit ton of runs. He's an excellent base runner. That's another thing I was going to point out. Excellent on the bases. Maybe the Cubs' best base runner. I would say he is the Cubs' best base runner. Another thing, he's second in... on base plus slugging in all of baseball. That's pretty awesome. And then another thing about Bryant is the fact that this guy can play 6 positions. He can play what? He can play third. He can play first. He can play left. He can play center if he needed to. He can play right. He's even played short at one point this year. I mean, this guy plays everywhere. And I think you can't undervalue that because with, you know, a guy like Baez, a guy like Soler, a guy like Contreras, you know, and all these guys you want to move around. Having a star like Bryant who's willing to move from position to position, you've heard Madden say, you know, a bunch of times that if he has an ego, I haven't seen it. And I think, you know, you could even watch the Cubs like sparingly, not even watch them all that often. You could easily see, you know, Kris Bryant's a mellow guy who doesn't have much of an ego and is willing to do what's best for the team. And just to have a guy that's that ultra talented, that can play all these different positions and play them all well, it's a huge advantage. And then if you wanted to make a case for Rizzo, you talk about the K rate. Rizzo's 1.35 K to base on ball ratio is much better than Kris Bryant's 2.8. Another thing is, this is a hard stat to really to explain, but there's a stat on Baseball Reference which is known as clutch situation. So I'm guessing that means 7th inning or later in a 2 runs or less ball game. Anthony Rizzo's batting .319 in those situations with a .524 on base percentage, while Chris Bryant's batting .229 with a .327 on base percentage. I mean, out of every stat I've read to you, that is probably the biggest disparity in any spat between the two. I mean, we're talking about an on-base percentage that's 200 points higher for Anthony Rizzo in clutch situations. Can't deny that. And the batting average is almost 100 points higher. Another thing for Rizzo, you can make cases, simply, it's kind of a generic thing, but it's the truth. He's the team leader. Other than maybe like a guy like David Ross. But as far as the young guys, position players, Anthony Rizzo is this team's team leader. When David Ross is gone next year, it's Rizzo's team. It's Rizzo's teams now. At least that's the way it appears to me from the outside looking in. But that's just some, stats on, explaining the difference between the two. That's some ways to give Rizzo the edge, if you want to say, in the MVP discussion. But just going through these numbers, I think it's pretty clear. The MVP of this team is Chris Bryant. The team leader is Anthony Rizzo. But I've heard a lot of people that just want to harp in on the numbers in clutch situations. Those without a doubt are important, and Rizzo's better in those situations. But outside of that, Bryant's better in every other way. So, and I think Bryant in the last week has shown he's improving in those clutch situations. The win in Game 1 against the Dodgers was due much in part to him coming through in the clutch with a couple home runs. And I think as time goes on, he'll get more and more clutch, if you will. But another thing to consider is Bryant's, a couple years younger than Rizzo. I think Rizzo's more in his prime of his career right now. Bryant's still a little in front of that. A few years from now, Bryant should be even better, you would think, barring some sort of catastrophic injury. But at the end of the day, I just want to make a video on this because I've heard a lot of discussion about it, and I've heard a lot of people siding with Rizzo. And Rizzo's great, I love him, but Chris Bryant is the MVP of this team, and he's the MVP of the entire league, which is really what this discussion is about, because it's kind of each is the same. Because whoever's the MVP of this team is the MVP of the league, because the MVP of the National League is going to come out of these two. And it's Chris Bryant, guys. But let me know down in the comments if you agree. Do you think it's Bryant? Do you think it's Rizzo? Do you think it's someone else? I'm probably going to do another video on the Cy Young discussion here pretty soon. But really, I do like when you guys comment. So comment down below if you agree, if you disagree. Don't forget to like the video, and don't forget to subscribe, guys. So I'll be back pretty soon with another video on the Cubs. And thanks for checking in, guys. And as always, go Cubs, go.